Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this council meeting of the 18th of April 2023, which is being held in person, obviously, here in the council chamber, Ferris Boulevard, South Morang, and the meeting is also being live streamed. I'm Lydia Wilson, Chair of Administrators here at the City of Whittlesea, and I'd also like to introduce my administrator colleagues. Firstly, Peter Duncan.
Good morning, where am I? Good afternoon, good evening everyone, I'll give it another go at that.
And Administrator Christian Zara.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening everyone.
I'd also like to introduce our Chief Executive Officer, Craig Lloyd, and ask that he in turn introduces the members of the Executive Leadership Team in attendance this evening. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening everyone. So I'd also like to introduce our Director of Planning and Development, Justin O'Mara, the Director of Customer and Corporate Services, Sarah Renner, the Director of Infrastructure and Environment, Debbie Wood, our Interim Director of Community Wellbeing, Anthony Trail, our Executive Manager Public Affairs, Janine Morgan, and Interim Executive Manager of Office of Council and CEO, Sarah Rowe. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Craig. On behalf of Council, I recognise the rich Aboriginal heritage of this country, and I acknowledge the Wurundjeri Willem clan and Tongarong people as the traditional owners of lands within the City of Whittlesea, and I'd also like to pay my personal respect to elders past, present and emerging. I'll now read our diversity and good governance statement. At the City of Whittlesea, we're proud of our diversity and the many cultures, faiths and beliefs that make up our community. We strive to be an inclusive, welcoming city that fosters active participation, well-being and connection to each other and this land. We commit as a council to making informed decisions to benefit the people of the City of Whittlesea now and into the future, to support our community's vision of a place for all. We have a number of acknowledgements this evening. Firstly, I'd like to start off by noting that obviously next week is Anzac Day, which is a time to gather to remember those who have served to defend Australia. Anzac Day has been one of the most important dates in the Australian calendar since 1916. At first, it gave people a chance to honour the original Anzacs, the Australians and New Zealanders who fought on Gallipoli. Anzac Day has become an occasion to honour all who have worn our country's uniform in service. Today we reflect on that service. We recognise more than 100,000 Australian servicemen and women who have lost their lives in military operations carried out in our country's name. We honour the values that have been invested in the original Anzacs: loyalty, selflessness, courage, and the ways in which later generations have measured their own achievements against those of the soldiers who fought on Gallipoli. On the 25th of April, I encourage all of you to remember this sacrifice by attending a local service, supporting the Anzac Appeal, or observing a minute's silence to remember the sacrifices of our servicemen and women. The second acknowledgement this evening is very exciting news for the City of Whittlesea. And it relates to the intermodal freight terminal at Beveridge, something that the City of Whittlesea has strongly campaigned for some time. So we're very thrilled to hear the recent announcement by National Intermodal of the acquisition of 1,100 hectares of land to bring together the long-awaited Beveridge Intermodal Freight Terminal, and that will then be a step closer to reality. The project is expected to deliver an enormous boost to local employment, with some 20,000 jobs required for both construction and ongoing operations, and it will contribute something like $3.5 billion to the economy each year. A statement released by National Intermodal last month indicated that early planning was underway to support potential interstate rail services at Beveridge as soon as possible, with full terminal and precinct warehouse operations by 2028-29, which are really some quite amazing short timelines. And we really look forward to working with National Intermodal and our neighbouring councils to bring the project to fruition. Could I now hand over to Administrator Duncan?
Thank you, Chair. This month, many of our people in the city of Whittlesea and the community have been celebrating Easter, or Orthodox Easter, and whether they were observing religious traditions or just spending time with their family and friends, on behalf of Council, we hope that it was a safe and rewarding time for you to be with your families. And we also would like to just thank all of our staff that continued to deliver services over that Easter break. So thank you for that. I've just got one more, Chair, which is Eid. And this Friday, the 21st of April, is a special day for our Muslim community here in the city of Whittlesea. And it marks the celebrations of Eid, which is the festival of breaking the fast. And Eid is the end of the holy month of Ramadan and is celebrated by Muslims all around the world. So for those in our community celebrating this Friday, I would like to wish you and your families all the very best and happy blessings for Eid.
Thank you very much, Administrator Duncan, and I know that Administrator Zara has also got one further acknowledgement.
Thank you very much, Administrator Wilson, and thank you, Administrator Duncan, as well, for allowing me the honour on our collective behalf to make this acknowledgement, which relates to one of our staff. We're very pleased to be able to acknowledge one of our key staff members at this evening's meeting, our Manager, Emergency Management and Regulatory Programs, Mr Andrew Mason, and his son Richard Mason, on their recent recognitions. Both Andrew, who's actually on leave, on annual leave at the moment over the next few weeks, and Richard were awarded the National Emergency Medal for their efforts during the 2019-2020 bushfires, which devastated so much of Eastern Australia, now referred to as Black Summer. They are both volunteers with the Country Fire Authority, and we are so proud of the fact that they have been formally recognised in this way, which brings them great credit. And we acknowledge their very significant community service over many years.
Thank you very much, Administrator Zara, and I'm sure our Director of Planning and Development will ensure that Andrew does receive our sincere congratulations on his achievement. I note that all administrators are present. Administrators, if you have a conflict of interest in any item on the notice paper, you may verbally disclose the type and nature of the interest now, but you must make a declaration immediately before consideration of the matter in question. Are there any items for which you have a conflict of interest to declare?
Nothing to declare, Chair.
Nothing to declare.
And I also have nothing to declare. So if we move to confirmation of minutes, I seek a motion to confirm the minutes of the following preceding meeting, which was the scheduled meeting of Council held on the 21st of March 2023. Do I have a mover?
Happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And a seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I'll now put the matter to a vote. All those in favour of confirming the minutes? The motion is carried. I'm now just going to read our public question time rules, which are from our governance rules. And I just do want to note that we will be rigidly adhering to the public question time rules this evening, and particularly because we know that we've got a number of questions already that have been provided to us, and also a number of petitions. Council allows up to 30 minutes each meeting for members of the public to ask up to 2 questions or to read out a petition or joint letter. Now, under our new governance rules, members of the public also have the opportunity to make a statement during that time. The person may make their statement, ask their question or talk to their joint letter or petition for up to 3 minutes in total. All statements and questions must be as brief as possible and obviously asked respectfully. Where members of the public do not wish to speak to the matter, the submitted question, statement, petition or joint letter will either be read out by the CEO, myself or a delegate, and I will either respond to the question or nominate another administrator or the CEO to respond. No more than 6 minutes should be spent on any one question. The CEO and I do have the ability to decline any questions that relate to matters outside the duties, functions and powers of Council. Questions that are discourteous or disrespectful, defamatory or intend to prejudice or insult someone. Priority will be given to questions that relate to an item listed on the agenda and those received prior to 12 p.m. on the day of the Council meeting. Importantly, all questions will be responded to in writing and included in the minutes of the Council meeting. So when invited to ask their question, the person must state their name, suburb, or any organisation or group they represent prior to asking the question to Council. So on that note, we'll be moving straight into public question time, and I have a number of pre-submitted questions. The first question is from Peter Karayanis, who I know is in attendance this evening. I will be reading Peter's question on his behalf, and one of our staff, Catherine, has very kindly offered to also translate for Peter, given that she's a fluent Greek speaker. So, Peter, I don't know if you'd like to come forward or if you wish to remain seated or even move somewhere close so that Catherine can translate for you. Okay. All right. Okay. So Peter's question is, I object the administrator's plan to increase the council rate. The system must be replaced and needs to be fair and equal to all ratepayers. Given increases to the cost of living, interest rates and the reduction of property market values, as well as inflationary pressures, the Council must halt any planned rate increase. And if I could ask our Chief Executive Officer to respond to Peter's question, and obviously Catherine can assist by way of translation.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question, Peter. Council is very mindful of the current economic climate, including the cost of living pressures on families. And we've shaped our draft 2023-2024 budget with this in mind, acknowledging that Council needs to fund the delivery of 147 services to the community each year, as well as building and maintaining essential roads, infrastructure and facilities. The proposed budget is currently out for community consultation and feedback until 5 p.m. on Tuesday the 25th of April 2023, and we will ensure that your feedback is included. An advisory committee of Council will meet to consider community feedback on the 1st of June before the final budget 23-24 and the Community Action Plan 23-24 is considered for endorsement at the Council meeting on Tuesday the 27th of June. Despite inflation rising by 7.8% in the 12 months to the December quarter, we're proposing an average rate increase of 3.5% in the 23-24 budget, which is in line with the rate cap set by the Victorian Government. Comparatively, the City of Whittlesea remains one of the lowest rating councils in Victoria. Council has also been subsidising the actual cost of waste charges for many years, and we're proposing to continue to subsidise this coming financial year due to the current economic climate. Our waste charge again remains significantly lower than many councils. The cost to deliver these important services and to build much needed facilities has significantly increased. The rating system is the same across Victoria, and the value of your individual property is used as a basis for calculating what each property owner will pay, which is an equitable approach. We do offer financial hardship provisions for those who need it, and we'd also welcome anyone in our community concerned about the financial impact to reach out to us for further information. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Craig, and thank you, Peter, for your question, and can I also thank Catherine for undertaking the translation this evening. We now have two questions from Sophie Mantis, and I understand that Sophie is in the gallery this evening.
Yes, I am.
Yes. Hi, Sophie. I understand that you're happy for me to read your questions on your behalf? Okay, thank you. So I will read each question and get a response from the CEO after each question. So Sophie's first question is, council administrators across Australia were recently requested to attend a meeting in Canberra regarding the rollout of smart cities / 20-minute neighbourhoods. Is council aware how this surveillance structure has been misappropriated in other countries? There are many protesting how this proposal is limiting their travel and access to the wider community. We recommend council research the effects of smart cities in places like Oxford and Leeds. While in principle community monitoring is theoretically useful, in practice it's open to use for nefarious reasons. And Craig, if I could ask you to respond to that question, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sophie, for the question. I can confirm that administrators or staff from the City of Whittlesea did not attend any meeting in Canberra in relation to smart cities rollout. The 20-minute neighbourhood is a Victorian government planning framework based on the idea that well-planned and well-designed communities can offer as many services as possible for people at all stages in their life, close to their home. The 20-minute neighbourhood aims to give people the freedom and the choice to do more things locally and to support local businesses and neighbourhood centres to thrive. It also aims to make it easy for people to travel to different places across the city. In no way does the 20-minute neighbourhood framework seek to restrict movement. Work, friends and family are often located further away, and Council is advocating and supporting regional road projects and rail extensions to support all of our residents to travel efficiently and effectively wherever they need or want to go. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Craig. Sophie's second question is, we have extended an invitation to Council to meet with a small group of concerned ratepayers. This invitation was accepted at the last Council meeting. Council was to make contact to arrange meeting details. As yet, we are still waiting to hear from Council. Is this a stalling tactic? We're keen to share our research and find common ground. When would the administrators like to meet with us? And I'll respond directly to this question. Sophie, it's certainly not a stalling tactic by Council. We do meet with ratepayers on a regular basis, and we've previously talked about the fact that we have monthly Coffee with Council events, as well as many other opportunities to interact directly with residents, and we welcome that. My office has reached out via email earlier this week, and we're looking forward to hearing back from you to finalise the details. So we look forward to having that meeting in due course. Thank you for your questions, Sophie. Then we now have two questions from Graham Conway. Hi, Graham. And again, I think I'll read each question separately and get a response from the CEO after each question. So Graham's first question is, it appears that Council is set on locking Whittlesea into livable cities. will residents have an option to vote for or against this agenda? And Craig, if I could get you to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Graham. Council is working to achieve our community vision of a place for all through the delivery of the goals outlined in Whittlesea 2040: connected communities, livable neighbourhoods, strong local economy, sustainable environment and high-performing organisation. You can find our Whittlesea 2040 visioning document on our website. Whittlesea 2040 was developed in conjunction with our local community in 2018, and Council received more than 4,700 community contributions during the extensive consultation process. Council regularly asks for community input to help us prepare our 4-year community plan and then the yearly action plans which articulate how we will bring our Whittlesea 2040 vision to life. A draft community plan action plan for 23-24 is currently out for community consultation, and you can visit engage.whittlesea.vic.gov.au to learn all about the different opportunities you have to have your say. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Graham's second question is, Council is not locking... Oh, sorry. Should we be locked into a livable city model, will Council impose travel restrictions or make residents pay for permits to leave their zone? What assurances and guarantees can the Council provide to ensure our freedom of travel will not be restricted? And again, if I could ask our CEO to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Council is not locking into a livable city model, nor does it aim to lock people within any type of zone or area. In fact, the reverse is true. Council is fully committed to improving the health and well-being of our residents. Council also aims to improve connectivity, accessibility, the freedom of movement for all people, whether they're driving, cycling, walking or taking public transport. Council is advocating and supporting regional road projects and rail extensions to support all of our residents to travel efficiently wherever they need to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. We now have 2 questions from Isabel Conway. Hi Isabel, welcome along to Council. I will actually read the 2 questions concurrent and get our CEO to respond to both of them. Unless, were you wanting to actually ask the questions directly yourself? You're happy for me to do it? Thank you. So question 1 is, there are many concerns regarding installation of cameras, monitoring our movements and activities. We wish to have a copy of all cameras, operating or dormant, that have been installed by the Council. Who has access to these images? What organisations do you share these images with for intended purposes or other reasons, i.e. selling of data to third parties? And Isabel's second question is, what is the range of your cameras and how clear are the images? Do cameras intrude into the private domain? How can you guarantee the privacy of your ratepayers and residents in their own private properties? What safeguards have been put in place to provide protection regarding images of those that are especially vulnerable, i.e. our children? And Craig, if I could ask you to respond to both of those questions concurrent.
Thank you, Lydia, and thank you, Isabel, for your question. As these questions are related, I'll answer them as one. The use of closed-circuit television or CCTV surveillance for public safety and protecting public assets is now quite commonplace. The City of Whittlesea does have CCTV cameras located in public spaces, council offices, pools, libraries, performing arts centres and waste management facilities. Council has a CCTV policy which governs the use of these in line with the Privacy and Data Protection Act of 2014, which sets out information privacy principles that apply when public sector agencies, including councils, collect personal information that enable individuals to be identified, such as the images captured by CCTV systems. In relation to obtaining a copy of the location of CCTV cameras, you have the right to request access to documents we hold through the Freedom of Information Act 1982, and you can submit an FOI request in person, by email or by post by completing a Freedom of Information request form. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. We now have 2 questions from Lisa Bootless. And Lisa, I understand that you'd like to ask your questions. Please come forward to the lectern. Could I please just remind you that you have up to 3 minutes to ask your 2 questions, and then we will respond to the questions after that, and there will be a timer.
Sure.
Thank you, Lisa.
So my name's Lisa and I live in Doreen. On the agenda there was removal of trees of Incarna Drive, which these I believe should be removed. And I have a question about all the roundabouts in the Shire, the shrubs that are too high. You cannot see oncoming cars indicating. This is very dangerous and needs to be addressed as soon as possible, not to mention shrubs alongside all your park areas. On the footpath that are very high in some areas, there are large rocks on your footpaths. Riverstone is one major area that needs urgent attention. And I did forget to mention in there that all your lakes are not safe as far as I'm concerned. They should be fenced off because it's, any child can walk to those lakes and drown. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, not acceptable, having young grandchildren walking around. I'm always holding their hands tightly, and I just think that's something that really needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Lisa. Would you like to go on to your second question?
Second question. Mine is about the 20-minute cities, and which are rolled out all over the world. They are part of the World Economic Forum and the New World Order to move men, women and children into these 20-minute cities to surveil, monitor, report and technology. Additionally, in 1974 and 1998, we the people, men, women, said no to the supply and establishment of local governments. Local governments do not have any right to exist or demand council rates on land in fee simple. Land is alienated from the Crown, and a business also has no authority to tax your property, referring to Land Tax Abolition 1953. And in 1988, Australian referendum was held on the 3rd of September. It contained 4 referendum questions, none of which were passed. None of these acts have royal assent as required under the Constitution, and the Constitution that I want everyone to be aware of is this one, 1900. That's what we should have.
Thank you, Lisa, for your questions, and if I could get our Chief Executive Officer to respond to both those questions.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Lisa, for the questions. In regard to the comments around Incarna Drive in Mill Park, we note that a petition is being tabled at the meeting tonight, so we'll respond to that as part of that process. Currently, Council does have contractors working through the municipality to address weed and garden bed maintenance. Our Unit Manager Parks and City Forest, Mark Correa, will be in touch to get more details around any specific areas of concern so that we can address those. In relation to the 20-minute cities, I have addressed that already in a previous question. However, I will address the Constitution question. In Australia, under the Constitution, the states are granted powers to govern and make laws. This power includes the creation of the Constitution Act 1975, Victoria, the Victorian Constitution, under which local government councils are established and granted the constitutionally valid power of creating laws. Council has roles and responsibilities under more than 100 acts and regulations, including the Local Government Act 2020. Rates are charged lawfully in line with the Local Government Act. The local laws can be developed by Council to deal with important community safety, peace and order issues such as public health, management of council property, environment and amenity, and are established to respond to the local issues or community need. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Lisa. We've got one final question from Eva Moran on behalf of the Outer Northern People's Voices group. And I understand, Eva, that you'd like to come forward and ask your question directly. And again, I'll just remind you of the time limit. We'll put the timer on. Thank you. Over to you, Eva.
Good evening, everyone. I'm from the Outer Northern People's Voices group, as Ms Wilson has stated. What I wish to bring to everybody's attention that recently we're having issues where the bins are left by the bin collecting company on the street and laying across the street. Now, we're very concerned because there's 2 issues. People, first of all, shouldn't have to bend down with health issues to pick up their bins or take them off the road. And furthermore, what concerns us is the danger that this is posing for ongoing traffic that's coming into the streets oblivious that this is happening. Now, we'd like that the CEO and the management and the head of the department that deals with these matters please look into this and resolve this immediately, because this is a disaster waiting to happen. So we raised this last year via email. Unfortunately, nothing's happened. They're still doing the wrong thing, that is the contractors. So we've sent in the photos to show, as you may have received, what exactly is going on the ground level here. So we thank you in anticipation for addressing this immediately, and so that no longer this will occur. And we unfortunately have to say that for 40 years we've lived in this area, and for 39 years we've never had these issues. All of a sudden these issues have arisen, and we can't deal with this, and it has to be resolved for the reasons mentioned. We hope that the contractors, JJ Richards, the council, will make sure that this is delivered. Failure to do so, we have to notify the police, because this is an irresponsible situation that is endangering people's lives, including cars that can be damaged. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. And again, if I could ask Craig to respond to your question.
Thank you, Lydia, and thank you, Eva, for the question. So with this one, I'll refer the matter to our Director of Infrastructure and Environment, Debbie Wood, over there, who will raise this issue with our contractors and seek to have the matter addressed. Thank you.
And you will obviously receive a response back after that occurs. Thank you, Eva. That brings us to the end of public question time, but if we could now move to petitions and joint letters. And I note that we've got... could I just check whether there are any other questions that anyone wished to raise this evening? Could you please come forward, and if you could state your name, where you live, and also whether you're a member of any specific organisation?
Not a member of any particular organisation, but I would like to ask how... two questions. One, you're expecting us to keep our pets, cats, inside from now going forward. I don't speak meow, so I'm not exactly sure how I'm actually meant to keep my cat indoors on a permanent basis when he needs to use the toilet outdoors. I don't agree with that policy. That's the first thing that I'd like to ask, why and who you asked. And, I know you put the question out there, but I don't know how you can make these rules and expect people to be able to keep their cats indoors all the time. It's just ridiculous. The second question is on 5G. Both myself and a lot of people in this room, my friend over there, is suffering from 5G, your infrastructure that you've put in place without asking us. EMF readings are off the scale. She has actually spoken to somebody at the council. This was last year. This person said they would get back to her. They never did. She contacted again in December. They said, oh, it's Christmas, too busy, I'll get back to you in the new year. They never did. 2 or 3 months later, she's contacted the council again, spoken to the same person, addressed a whole lot of these matters, such as the smart cities. Oh no, we're not signed up for that. So we're getting lied to by your people. So can we get an address to that and what you're going to do about the 5G and the problems that we're having with radiation sickness? I'm losing my hair as a result of the sickness.
You didn't give us your name. So could you please state your name?
Trinette. That's it. That's all you need.
For the purposes of our minutes.
Yeah, you've got it,
and you've
Trinette.
raised two specific issues in relation to cat confinement and 5G. So we need your full name to be able to respond.
That is my full name. Of the family hunter, if you prefer.
Craig, would you like to respond at this stage, or would you like to take the questions on notice?
I'll take them in both. So we'll provide a full written response, of course, on both, as the question was asked without notice. But I will address the cat curfew. So it was obviously a resolution of council. Extensive community consultation was undertaken as part of our domestic animal management plan consultation some considerable time ago. The restrictions come into play in August this year. And we've been providing extensive information out to the community on how to comply with those rules, how to keep cats contained, how to make that transition. But again, I will provide more information in the letter as part of that guidance and advice. Just in relation to the 5G question, we've been asked this question at previous council meetings. Council does not own any 5G infrastructure, but when we do consider 5G applications, we consider those in accordance with the ACMA standards. And those decisions are made in line with those standards, including regular testing that needs to occur by those companies. Again, I'll provide some more information in a written response.
Thank you. So you will receive a written response in relation to your 2 questions this evening. Thank you. Just before we move to petitions, can I just check whether there are any final questions this evening? Could you? Yes. And if you could again state your name.
My name's Carol Tilley. I live in the council area, and I'd request that you send all this information that you're putting out there, instead of us getting on to the internet to look at it. How about you send it so we can come to these meetings that you're talking of that have been spoken about, that you've elected to do these changes without our consent? Because I've never got any information saying you're doing all these changes, and I would like to hear from them on paperwork. So everything with the 5G, with the smart cities and everything you're doing, I think you should be sending it out to the people in the community so we can vote on it, because I've never heard of anything that we've had an opportunity to come and speak to you about it.
I think I will only respond by simply saying that we put out extensive information
but I'm requesting
through
it
our
by
website.
Paper, but I'm asking it for paperwork to the community, so everyone's on board. Some people can't get onto the internet, some don't have it, some are older. I think it should be sent out to the community in letter form so we can all vote.
So if we move to petitions and joint letters, I note that we've got 2 petitions this evening. And the first petition is the head petitioner is Daniela Stocco, and I don't believe that Daniela is in the gallery this evening. And the petition is from 49 signatories requesting that Council remove the nature strips along Incarna Drive, Mill Park, and replace these trees as part of its street tree renewal program. And we have an officer recommendation that Council note the petition from 49 residents requesting Council remove the nature strip trees along Incarna Drive, Mill Park, and replace these trees as part of its street tree renewal program, and write to the signatories to inform them that 1, a report to Council will be prepared for the June 2023 Council meeting advising how the petitioner's concerns have been addressed, and 2, all signatories will be advised of Council's decision following the June 2023 Council meeting. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to that petition?
No, I don't.
I therefore call for a motion for the petition to be tabled.
I'm happy to move in that way, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And I'm happy to second the officer recommendation and the motion. Administrator Zara, would you like to speak to the motion? No. So I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. We have a second petition this evening, and I understand that Samuel Eisen is in attendance to speak to this particular petition. Welcome, Samuel, and if I can again advise you of the 3-minute time limitation. Thank you. Over to you.
Hello, my name is Sam Eisen and I live at 605 Dalton Road, Epping. A few months ago we began mulching our nature strip with the intention of planting small endemic grasses and flowers no taller than 30 centimetres, as we believed was allowed in the 2015 guidelines. Last week, we got a notice to remove the mulch, which was fully spread and neat. We learned the council is in the process of updating their nature strip guidelines and instructed us to remove the mulch, store it until we can apply under the new set of guidelines. This would entail several full days of work and would allow the weeds to grow back. We sent in an appeal as we believe the nature strip can provide great benefits to biodiversity and aesthetics of the area. We received overwhelmingly positive feedback from people walking past while weeding and tidying, and many more would have signed a petition if they were available on the day as I was collecting signatures. The issuing officer said if it was up to him, he would allow it to stay. And we had obtained pre-approval from our renting body. These small endemic plants will provide great native biodiversity, from the soil microbiome to the pollinators to the birds to the entire Darebin Creek Wildlife Corridor. We request the mulch is at least allowed to stay until we can reapply under the new guidelines, or optimally our plans to plant small endemic grasses and flowers is approved. I also have printed photos of the nature strip and the plants and examples of plants that could be planted. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Sorry, I was just seeking some guidance because we're nearly at our 30 minutes time limitation with the governance rules, and I think I might have to ask my colleagues if they're happy to move an extension of time of a further 5 minutes just to complete petitions and joint letters this evening. Are you? Oh, I'm happy to move the extension of 5 minutes. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Administrators, do you have any questions of Samuel? So we have an officer recommendation and we'll be projecting the officer recommendation, which is that Council note the petition. Oh, we don't have it. I will read the officer recommendation and then we can project it. That Council note the petition from 15 residents that Council note the petition from 15 residents requesting Council allow the nature strip mulch at 605 Dalton Road, Epping, to remain, and small endemic grasses and wildflowers to be planted as per the 2015 City of Whittlesea Nature Strip Guidelines, and write to signatories to inform them that Part 1, a report to Council will be prepared for the June 2023 Council meeting, advising how the petitioners' concerns have been addressed. And 2, all signatories will be advised of Council's decision following the June 2023 Council meeting. I'm happy to move for the petition to be tabled in accordance with the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Administrator Zara. I don't wish to speak to this particular recommendation, and unless Administrator Zara does, I'll put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you very much, Samuel, and that's the resolution of Council this evening. Thank you for coming along and being in attendance. We now move into general business and we'll be working through the agenda. Item 5.1.1 is a petition to remove trees on nature strips on Harrison Street, Mernda. And if I could invite our Director of Infrastructure and Environment to introduce this item. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. This item just relates to a petition that we had previously come to Council. And we have held meetings with the petitioners and they've raised a couple of extra concerns about the stability of some trees during times of high wind and also the wind tunnel effects. So what we want to do is we want to go back out and commission some further investigations, so some root plate stability testing by an external arboricultural consultant. And given this extra work, we just need a little bit more time before we come back to Council, noting that the previous recommendation said we will come back to Council in April. We're actually asking for it to come back in May. It's really important that when we're making these decisions that we have as much information as possible so we can give the best advice to Council. So I'll just present the recommendation to report back to Council at the May Council meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Administrators, do you have any questions relating to this item? So do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.1.1?
I'm happy to move this one, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And a seconder?
Happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Would the mover like to speak to the item?
I think just to say, given we've got new concerns, that this is the sensible thing to do, is to defer until the May meeting once you've got everything all together. So I think that'll be good for the petitioners.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara, anything further?
I'm in agreement. I think our colleague, Administrator Duncan, has summed it up nicely.
Thank you. I now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, Debbie. Item 5.5.1, Thomastown and Layla Place Framework. And again, if I could ask you to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to be presenting this important piece of strategic work that has been undertaken in-house and with strong engagement and input by the community. This framework will guide the future direction for Laylaw and Thomastown, focusing on creating greener spaces, connected places, shared local culture, vibrant centres and industries and enhanced character. I have with me here my Manager of Urban Design and Transport, Mr Arishdeep Singh, to give you an overview of the report and recommendations to Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you for a great introduction, Debbie, and good evening all. Thomastown and Laylaw Place Framework translates Council's vision, Whittlesea 2040, a place for all, to Thomastown and Laylaw. The framework is a place-responsive document covering multiple themes and outcomes and provides a series of opportunities to improve these important suburbs over time. The framework builds on existing strategies and policies, identifies future priority projects, activities, and will help in driving positive change in both Thomastown and Laylaw. Over the past 3 years, the framework has had 3 rounds of community engagement, over 500 community contributions, and 3 versions of the document. The draft framework was exhibited and presented to community for feedback over the month of November 2022. The community were asked to gauge their level of support for the draft framework, prioritise themes and opportunities, and provide general feedback. The community overwhelmingly supported the framework. Their priority themes were improved greener spaces and improved connected places. Key opportunities that community supported were naturalising Edgar's Creek as a green spine, improve High Street general connectivity, east-west road connections, rail crossings, and public transport accessibility. During the preparation of the framework, Council also completed the municipal strategic planning project in partnership with Department of Transport and Planning. As part of the project, an independent review for both planning and economic aspects for Thomastown and Lalor neighbourhood activity centres was undertaken, and the key recommendations for improvements across planning, infrastructure and service delivery were identified. Some of these are improving connectivity and access to the centres, strengthening public transport accessibility, to consider high-density around centres and train stations, and to invest in improving 8 priority centres for appearance, accessibility and event capabilities. Key findings from this final report has been incorporated within the final framework. The Thomastown and Lalor Place framework has undergone extensive development with community, key stakeholders and is well supported. And the framework will influence Council's future projects, timelines and budgets to make Thomastown and Lalor a place for everyone. So I'm honoured to present the framework to Council and put forward the recommendations as per the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arishdeep. Administrators, do you have any questions relating to this item?
I don't, Chair.
Administrator Zara?
I don't have a question, Chair, but I just note the extensive community participation in this process, with around 500 contributions to the work that's been done. I'm sure every single one of those contributions has improved the final product that we're seeing today. So just for you, Chair, I think it's appropriate to acknowledge that community contribution and thank our officers for what I think is excellent work.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I don't have any questions either in relation to this item, but could I ask for a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.5.1?
I'm actually very happy to move this, Chair, but I'd like to make some minor changes to the officer recommendations. So just on the screen there. Recommendation number 1, that just stays as is. Recommendation number 2, write to contributors thanking them for their involvement and feedback throughout the development of the framework. Recommendation number 3, so this will be a new sentence. Provide a copy of the Thomastown and Lalor Place framework to all local members of Parliament. No, number 3.
I think Administrator Duncan means that is the new...
That's the new one.
3.
Sorry. Just provide a copy. That one, provide a copy, yep. Great.
Just sorry, remove will be provided.
Oh yes, yep, thank you.
Thank you.
And number 4 is provide a copy of the Thomastown and Lalor Place framework to the Lalor and Thomastown libraries.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Do I have a seconder with the amendments to the officer recommendation?
I'm happy to second the amended recommendation on the screen.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. Administrator Duncan, would you like to, as the mover of the motion, speak to this item?
Thank you, Chair. Administrator Zara stole a bit of the thunder here as thanking all of the community that provided feedback 3 times over, which was fantastic. This isn't a new document for us. It's obviously been adapted over 3 journeys here, so I think it's a great outcome for Thomastown and Lalor. They've got a population growth that's going to happen by 2040. And I just think it's going to be fantastic once this all comes together. So well done. And again, as my colleague said, really thank the community for putting in their feedback, which we absolutely have listened to, because you can see that through the iterations. So well done.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara?
Thanks, Chair. I just make the point that these are already great places and fantastic communities, but these types of important council strategic planning documents provide a framework to continue to make them, I guess, livable into the future. And we're aware of population pressures. We're aware of all of the challenges that come with growing urban areas. And these are great responses in public policy, I think, to those challenges. And they'll ensure, I think, in the decades to come, that these places, already great, will continue to be so, and in fact that their livability will be enhanced. So well done to our team, and thanks again through you, Chair, to all of those 500 people who've made this document better at every stage.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And can I take the liberty of just making a few very brief comments myself? My colleagues have made some really important points, particularly that this is a really excellent piece of work. And Debbie, you noted that the work has essentially been done in-house. And so there's been huge effort and also enormous community input in the development of this framework with the 3 rounds of consultation. I just also wanted to note that it's so important that we focus on some of the more established parts of the municipality, not just the new growth areas, and the fact that this framework really does reflect community aspirations. Again, just simply to congratulate staff for their work and also to acknowledge the huge amount of community input in the development of the final plan. So on that note, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you again. If we could now move to item 5.5.2, proposed lease of 1F Ashline Street, Wollert, for affordable housing, and invite our Director of Planning and Development, Justin O'Mara, to speak to this report and officer recommendations. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd also like to introduce George Saisanis, our Manager of Strategic Futures, who's been part of this project during the course of community engagement as well. So the purpose of this report is to discuss outcomes of the community engagement undertaken for the proposal to lease the land at 1F Ashline Street, Wollert, for affordable housing, and it also outlines recommended next steps in the process. Just in terms of providing some housing context for the municipality, there's an estimated 3,600 households within the city of Whittlesea that have an unmet need for affordable housing. With interest rates rising, along with rents and the overall general cost of living, the need for affordable housing is only increasing. And this is not only within the city of Whittlesea, it's statewide and nationwide. The city of Whittlesea is committed to encouraging new affordable housing, something which the community endorsed during the development of the Whittlesea 2040 Community Vision and Plan. By way of background, this particular site is a 5,000 square metre vacant block of residentially zoned land, located opposite the Wollert Primary School, and was vested to council as part of a development contribution and was initially planned to be the location for a new community activity centre. In November 2020, council determined to build the new community activity centre on the opposite primary school site to allow for a larger centre to be built. This new larger site for the centre has allowed for an additional kindergarten room to accommodate 3-year-old kinder, a larger multi-purpose space, car parking, outdoor areas, and also allows enough space for a new library hub that was originally not planned to be located here to open later on this year. In September 21, council resolved to commence community engagement to consider leasing the land for affordable housing. The site is considered to be well located for residential purposes based on its proximity to schools and it's serviced well by bus and public open space networks. Council conducted a number of community engagement activities. This included an online survey, information sessions, focus groups and a community drop-in session. There is a significant amount of feedback from the community, raising concerns on a range of issues, and these issues included safety, amenity, design and traffic. The recommendation of this report takes into consideration both community feedback and also the broader need for affordable housing, and recommends an approach that addresses community concerns raised throughout the engagement process, such as density, design and tenant cohorts. It is recommended that Council commence an expressions of interest process to identify a registered community housing organisation to design, deliver and manage affordable housing on the site for up to 50 years. Based on community feedback, it is also recommended that any response is required to meet the following criteria. Firstly, a high-quality design that integrates with the surrounding neighbourhood character. Secondly, development must not exceed 2 storeys in height and be single detached housing, duplex and townhouse style only. Thirdly, establish a comprehensive community development program. Fourth, provision of a flexible community space that would be managed by Council as part of the adjacent community activity centre. And last, preferentially allocate the homes to local residents or people with local connections in the following cohorts: young families, older people, women, key workers and people with disabilities. If Council resolves to support the recommendations, one of the key steps to follow the expressions of interest process will be the preparation of draft designs for the site for community consultation. This is to occur before a final decision is made by Council on the design. That's my summary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Justin. I wonder whether I could start with a couple of questions. I wonder whether initially you could please clarify the intent of Part 3D of the Officer recommendation, which is establish a comprehensive community development program alongside the development of the affordable housing. Exactly what does that mean?
Thank you, Chair. And I'll ask George to respond to that question. Thanks, George.
Thank you, Chair. So the Ashline Street Affordable Housing Project will be part of Council's regular community development work. It's going to involve partnership between the community housing provider and Council's community development officers in ensuring that residents are integrated into the community, but also that they're provided with assistance to access the relevant services they require. So the actual program itself will be developed once the community services provider is selected, but that's the general aim, and also noting the flexible community space that's being recommended as part of this report to be provided, to be incorporated as part of the development. It's envisaged that Council will be involved in running and programming of that space, and it'll be accessed both by the residents in the development, but also the intent is for the broader community to have access to it as well, and linking into the programs and activities that will be occurring on the Kirrip Community Activity Centre site.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there might be a site presence part of the time?
Yes, as part of that community facility,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And could I just ask a second question? And Justin, you mentioned in your introduction about the scale of what has occurred with the Community Activity Centre and the fact that there's some additional inclusion, such as a kindergarten space, and we've recently resolved on a new library. Can you just talk a little bit about the developer contribution and the potential scale of what had been committed to vis-a-vis the reality of what is going to be provided by way of community support and at that activity centre, if you can, square metres or new programs?
Thank you, Chair. I mentioned in my summary that one of the key things that the new larger site provides for is 3-year-old kinder, so an additional kindergarten room that couldn't be accommodated on the previous mooted site. In terms of additional space, it's an additional nearly 1,000 square metres of additional space that's provided at the new Kirrip site. on the school site versus what could have been provided on the Ashline Street site. So overall, it's quite a larger area. And also the additional space in the foyer area has allowed for the council's decision late last year to also include a library hub there, which would have otherwise not been able to be accommodated at the Ashline Street site.
Okay, thank you. Administrators, do you have further questions in relation to this item? Administrator Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Justin, in your recommendation 3F, where you've discussed what the preferential allocation will be for local residents, can you just clarify what you mean by key workers?
Yeah. Thank you, Administrator Duncan. So by way of key workers are defined generally as key workers that are really integral to the effective functioning of the community. So it's teachers, nurses, police, who I know we've got here tonight, and other key community workers that really help with delivery of those key community services that are often priced out of market housing within their local areas that they work in.
Okay, and I've just got a follow-up question, not to that, but just another question. Can you also just clarify where we sit in relation to social and affordable housing provisions within the City of Whittlesea relative to targets?
Yep. Thank you, Administrator Duncan. I might ask George to answer that question.
Thank you. Yes, I can take that one. So it was previously mentioned by Justin that there is a shortfall of about 3,600 social and affordable dwellings to meet the current demand. And just to give you the context, since the inception of the state government's big housing build in 2020, there's been 234 new dwellings built and 74 in the pipeline, 76 in the pipeline, which is a significant investment on its own. However, all that will only meet less than 10% of the need. So that's what's been happening in the last few years, even with that investment. And it's a lot of energy and time goes into that. It doesn't even get to 10% of the need.
Was the 10% of the need factored in prior to interest rate rises and the economic pressure that we're seeing today that we can more than likely expect for quite some time? Was that calculated like when the good times were rolling as opposed to now?
That's a really good question, Administrator Duncan. The 3,600 households that need to access affordable housing was before interest rates started increasing. So we do expect that number to increase, given the rapid number of interest rate increases that's occurred recently and the cost of living pressures associated.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara, any further questions?
Thank you, Chair. First to say, I think this is good work by our team who've clearly engaged with a great many people to hear their concerns and I think make a very good attempt in the recommendation at meeting the needs of those people who've expressed some concerns in relation to this development. I think one thing that might be useful, if I can ask our officers to respond to, Chair, through you, is to give a bit of a sense of scale. I mean, sometimes people think these developments are going to be monolithic and be literally hundreds and hundreds of dwellings. I just wonder if, just using this public opportunity, to perhaps talk through roughly the number of dwellings that we're talking about. And my colleague, Administrator Duncan, has touched on the fact that quite a significant cohort are going to be people who are working in important local jobs, and probably a significant cohort might be retired people as well. So perhaps if I could just get you to address that first part of the question first, in terms of roughly the number of dwellings that we're actually talking about.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. And in terms of the exact number, that'll be determined through the design process if Council decides to proceed, but it will be a similar sort of density to the current area. So we've mentioned in the report we're recommending single detached dwelling, townhouse style and potentially duplex style housing, which is commonplace in all growth areas now. So very similar to that sort of existing density. And your second question in relation to retirees and other cohorts, that's definitely the recommendation, that the specific cohorts of residents are required by the successful community housing provider to be preferentially treated to be homed in these new homes. And the reason why we're saying, recommending that it should be families with children is given it's opposite the school and opposite a future secondary school as well, but also retirees. Often you find that retirees need to be located in homes close to their other family. Often, and that's often a real reason, a real demand in some of our growth areas, especially where you've got families moving in. The grandparents are often in other locations. So, yep. Thank you.
Administrators, are anything further?
Thank you, Chair, and I thank our team for answering my questions. I'm happy to support. I think what's happened here is a really great example of a municipality trying to achieve an important social policy goal whilst listening to the local community and trying as best we can through this process to address it. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to move the officer recommendation for item 5.5.2. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And I think it's really important that we do speak to this item because it's been a long time coming and a long time in development. And I think we need to note as administrators that we've actually spent a lot of time and effort to better understand this particular issue, particularly given the amount of concern from local residents that's been evident throughout the community consultation process. And we deliberately extended the community engagement process because it was commenced during COVID, and we definitely had feedback from residents that the online approach to engagement wasn't satisfactory and that we really needed to have more in-person engagement. Importantly, we've had a number of briefings from relevant experts who are involved in different components: community engagement, affordable housing, architecture and urban design, and they include Rob McGorran, Rachel Hornsby and Dr Andrea Cook. All of us have visited the site on at least one occasion. In fact, I know that I've attended several times to get a better understanding of the site and its the environment it operates within. And we've been able to look at local and international examples of models of housing design and integration with the surrounding area. We've had many updates from council officers in relation to the community engagement component, and importantly, and I note that we've had a question this evening even in relation to rates, we're well aware of the socio-economic situation within the municipality, and Justin, you talked about the fact that we've got some 3,606 households that have got an unmet need for affordable housing in the municipality, and you've made the comment in response to Administrator Duncan that we've got a really critical shortage of local homes that are affordable for residents on low income. And that number is continuing to grow. I think Administrator Duncan's question about the timing relative to the current context we're operating, we know it's only that much worse for residents now. We've certainly heard loud and clear community concern about issues such as safety, amenity and impact on property values. And I think because of those comments from residents, the officers have come back with a very considered approach that is recommended to ensure that those concerns are addressed, while also we can deliver a boost to very much needed affordable housing. And Justin, I think you did a really good summary of the officer recommendations relating to the high quality design, the maximum two-storey single detached or townhouse style, and the fact that it really needs to be in keeping with the adjacent environment. And our engagement with local residents will continue throughout. and no doubt they'll be invited to provide feedback on the draft plans and designs once the suitable community housing organisation is selected. Just in conclusion, I just wanted to note that we as a council have a responsibility alongside the private sector and alongside government to really look at how we can deliver on the high need for affordable housing within the municipality, and hence I strongly support the officer recommendations and all of the work that's been done to get to this particular point in time. Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
I'm good, thanks, Chair. I think you've summed it up perfectly.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Administrator Zara, anything further to add?
Nothing further from me, Chair. Thank you.
I will then put the motion for a vote. All those in favour? The motion's carried. Thank you. Item 5.5.3, proposed discontinuance and sale of road reserve Garong Avenue, Wollert. And if I could invite our Director of Customer and Corporate Services, Sarah Renner, to introduce this item. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. And I would like to also introduce George Vassiliadis, who is our Unit Manager, Strategic Property, joining me here today. The purpose of this report seeks Council's approval to finalise the statutory procedures for the discontinuance and sale of 2 road splays in Garong Avenue, Wollert. This is due to the layout of the abutting lots and intersecting roads, which have recently been altered to provide an improved layout for development. Council commenced consultation, that is formal consultation, on the 17th of January 2023 for the duration of the 28-day submission period. The notice period ended on the 14th of February 2023 with no submissions received. Thank you, Chair.
Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item?
No, Chair. It's largely technical and administrative, so I'm happy to support it.
Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 5.5.3? Thank you, Administrator Zara, and I'm happy to second the item. Administrator Zara, would you like to speak to the item?
Nothing further, Chair. Thank you.
And nor do I. So on that note, I'll put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5.5.4, appointment of council representation on organisations and committees. And if I could invite our interim executive manager, Office of Council and CEO, Sarah Rowe, to introduce this item and its recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. So with the recent appointment of Administrator Zara, we have the opportunity to review council representatives to organisations and committees. This enables ongoing council representation, participation and contribution to local and strategic organisations. The report seeks council to nominate the representation of administrator delegates and officers to the organisations and committees highlighted in the report until the end of the current term of 31 October 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions, administrators, relating to this item?
No, Chair.
No. I'm happy to move the officer recommendation for item 5.5.4. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Administrator Zara. I don't really have anything further to add. I think, Sarah, you've provided a good overview in relation to the purpose of this report and the fact that the recommendations continue right through to October 2024. and all of it is clearly outlined within the council report. Administrator Zara, do you wish to speak to the item?
No, Chair.
I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, Sarah. I note that there's no notices of motion. Administrators, do you have any items of urgent business?
No, Chair.
None, Chair.
So we'll move straight on to reports of council representatives and the CEO update. And if I could just provide a report of some of my key activities over the past month since the last council meeting. Along with the CEO, I attended another important meeting of the Northern Councils Alliance, which is a really good opportunity to look across the councils of the North on key issues and collective advocacy. I noted earlier in the meeting our coffees with council. We had another one this month at Degani Uni Hill, Bundoora, and that was most successful as always. And then I think it's important to note at the end of March we had a really important meeting or site visits with the Minister for Local Government, the Honourable Melissa Horne, and local member for Yan Yean, Lauren Cathergy, at Mernda Social Support Centre and Whittlesea Skate Park. And they were important opportunities given that there's state funding for some development of both of those facilities. Together with a number of staff and Administrator Duncan, we had a visit of some of our conservation reserves, which was really invaluable, along with our CEO and the directors, and that included Eden Park and Woodstock. I attended this morning an important sod turn and announcement in relation to Hope Street Youth and Family Services. And I'm happy to respond to any questions from my colleagues if they have any. Administrator Duncan, could I now ask you to present a brief report?
Thanks, Chair. I won't go over all of the activities that I attended with yourself and Administrator Zara, but I did have the opportunity to go and visit the Wyndham Aboriginal Gathering Place, and just a thank you to Wyndham City Council for hosting us. So that was something spectacular to see. I also attended the Laylaw Landcare Community Planting Day, which was fantastic, and happy to do that again. It was very good. And I also attended the annual Interfaith Ramadan dinner at Al Sarat College, and thank you to them as well for hosting me. That's it.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Any questions of Administrator Duncan? No, I have none either. So on that note, Administrator Zara, could I invite you to provide a brief overview of some of your activities?
Thanks, Chair. Like Administrator Duncan, I won't mention those things that we've done together. Just to mention one additional item, it was an honour for me to attend on behalf of all administrators. The Reconciliation Action Plan that the City of Whittlesea is developing engagement session that took place on the 29th of last month. It was fantastic to see people present from the local community who had given up their time to come and contribute to this shared effort. So I thank them on behalf of all of us for taking their time to do it. And of course, as importantly as anything, I thank our Aboriginal staff who are leading that process and doing such excellent work. We really are very lucky to have them, Chair, leading the work and contributing so much to that important work.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I've got no questions. Administrator Duncan? No. So on that note, I'll ask the CEO to provide an update to both the Council and members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The $3.4 million redevelopment of Mill Park Stadium is complete after works to upgrade the facility's forecourt were finished recently. Works including the installation of accessible paths, improved lighting for safety and wayfinding, landscaping, seating and bicycle parking. The forecourt project complements the extensive works to the stadium completed last year, including construction of the new female-friendly changing rooms, accessible public toilets, shower and change facilities and an updated kitchen and canteen. The City of Whittlesea contributed $2.4 million towards that redevelopment, with the state government making a $1 million contribution from its community sports infrastructure stimulus program, and we thank the state government for that contribution. The new playground at Kalinak Recreation Reserve was opened to the public earlier this month, just in time for the Easter holidays. The playground features swings, slides, rope climbs, flying fox and a focus on nature-based play. Work to install the reserve's final features, including park furniture, barbecues and basketball court, continued this week and they'll be completed very soon. The upgrade was undertaken as a master plan process, provided the community with a chance to have their say on what they would like to have seen in the reserve. The reserve's $1.35 million redevelopment was made possible by a $675,000 contribution from Council and matched funding again from the state government, this time from the Growing Suburbs Fund. The City of Whittlesea is reaping the environmental and economic benefits of its investment in solar power and battery storage. So some really good news in this one. The Victorian Local Government Solar Survey for 2022 shows Council's rapid emergence as a leader in the renewable energy space. According to the survey, the City of Whittlesea ranks first amongst the 50 surveyed councils in Victoria in battery storage and third for installed solar photovoltaic capacity. I think I've got that right. This investment in renewable energy has helped to reduce our energy consumption and therefore reduce operational costs of community facilities for both users and for council. There's still time to have to say on the draft budget for 23-24 and our draft community plan action plan, with consultations open until 5 p.m. on the 25th of April. We've drafted the budget being very mindful of the rising cost of living and the current economic climate. It's informed by community input gathered last year, and we now invite you to have your say, and submissions will be considered by Council. And finally, we're inviting local people who want to lead community projects, establish personal and professional networks, and learn more about local government through our free community leadership program. Expressions of interest for the latest intake of this popular program are open until 5 p.m. on Sunday the 23rd of April. If you're over 18 and looking to make a difference in the community, I'd encourage you to have a look on our website for more information. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Craig, for an informative and some good news there. Administrators, any questions of Craig?
No, thanks.
Could I just note that all of our verbal reports will actually be documented in the minutes? Administrators, I require a motion to close the meeting to the public under section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 for the consideration of confidential items. Item 9.5.1, sale of property under section 181 of the Local Government Act. Do I have a mover to close the meeting for consideration of confidential items?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Administrator Zara. I'll now put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. And that brings us to the end of the open meeting, and therefore I declare the open meeting closed at 7:58 p.m. Thank you.